In today's video we will discuss how Africa should position itself in the upcoming battle of hegemony between the Western world, led by the US, against the rise of China as an economic and political rival. But before we continue, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more related contents. With Biden's administration, there is a notable shift to how the US sees and speaks about Africa, if the speech by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is anything to go by. He talked about partnerships and steered clear of the condescending lectures of the past. One has to just remembered how the former US President Donald Trump referred to African countries as shitholes. The declaration by America's chief diplomat that Africa is the future signals the continent can no longer be ignored. The escalating power rivalry between the United States and China has a striking resemblance to Cold War tensions between the United States and the Soviet bloc. Africa's countries were arranged like pawns on a chessboard during the time. Their social and economic progress was impeded by their efforts to affiliate themselves with one of the superpowers in the global war between communism and capitalism for world dominion. With notable exceptions, African states generally failed to exercise positive agency for their own development. They also eroded the institutional and governance foundations vital for economic success. In the current context of rising geopolitical tensions between the US and China, African countries may find themselves repeating the same mistakes unless they proactively shape their own destinies. Tensions between the two great powers, which are characterized by a violent trade war, are rising at a time when COVID-19 is putting immense strain on the global economy. African countries are also experiencing their greatest economic problems since independence, in part due to the COVID pandemic. Africa is institutionally underprepared to weather the combined effects of the health pandemic and severe economic recession. Its leaders will need to consciously design strategies of engagement that will help them to manage the ongoing superpower tensions to their advantage. They should do so without taking sides. This requires that they deal with each of these great powers based on pragmatic rather than ideological choices. Despite their institutional underpreparedness, African countries can and indeed must be highly strategic and tactical in how they respond to the US-China tensions. Failure to do so will inevitably mean sacrificing their own interests. In the current geopolitical situation, the African continent faces three problems and opportunities. The first is technological frontiers, followed by global supply networks, and finally trade integration and economic cooperation. There is a great deal of evidence that technological innovation is the primary driver of economic growth. As a result, access to and use of emerging technologies like 5G is critical to Africa's development. For a continent like Africa, where mobile technology has surpassed more traditional technologies, fifth-generation technologies are crucial options. Universal broadband is vital for the continent's transition to a digital economy, and access to technologies like 5G provides that. The Chinese multinational Huawei, the world's biggest supplier of 5G network equipment, was included to the US government's list of companies regarded to pose a major risk to national security and foreign policy interests. Huawei was effectively banned from importing and incorporating key US technologies into its products and services. This included both hardware, such as high-tech semiconductor components, and software, like Google Mobile Services (GMS). The ban was later extended to key technologies from non-US firms. These included the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, a major Huawei supplier. In the month following the initial ban, the CEOs of four major South African telecommunications operators Telkom, Vodacom, MTN and Cell C wrote a joint letter to South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, requesting his urgent intervention on the US action against Huawei. Their aim would have been to lend diplomatic weight to prevent damage to South Africa's telecommunications sector. African policymakers should strenuously safeguard their right to choose from the widest possible range of technology options that suit their country's development needs, as well as their economic possibilities. And they should insist on acquiring and developing new technologies like 5G based on pragmatism. The global supply chain is the second struggle for African countries. The COVID-19 reality, along with the escalating tensions between the United States and China over trade, technology, and supply chains, has created opportunities for African countries to seize. Combined, they have exposed serious problems in supply networks across various sectors. These include digital products, food, pharmaceutical and medical supply chains. These sectors represent opportunities for African countries to develop new products, services and capabilities. They could, for example, provide answers to safeguarding Africa's food security needs, local production of essential drugs and medicines, low-cost medical tests and equipment, and logistics. However, to establish thriving economic sectors and cross-border industrial links, African countries will need to collaborate more cooperatively. In our opinion, trade will be a key enabler. This leads to the third domain, namely the need for African countries to deepen trade integration and economic cooperation. This will provide a basis for diversifying from over-reliance on export markets such as China and the US, and to build internal resilience. Intra-African trade accounts for just 16% of total African trade. This compares with 52% in Asia and 73% in Europe. African trade is highly concentrated on a few economic hubs. China and Europe together account for 54% of total African trade, with China being Africa's single largest trading partner. It accounts for over 14% of total African trade. The African Continental Free Trade Area provides Africa with the institutional and infrastructure needed to boost intra-African trade, diversify its trading partners, and undertake long overdue trade policy reforms. COVID-19 has induced significant delays in the implementation of this trading arrangement. It should, in fact, have magnified a sense of urgency. But instead of showing adaptability, African leaders pressed a pause button. As a result, the continent could miss an opportunity to accelerate development of cross-border value chains in medical supplies and equipment and other areas. African countries could take advantage of the increased tensions between China and the United States to gain positive agency and design their own destiny. In the face of a fluid and uncertain global environment, they will need to be more proactive and adaptable. This will demand a tremendous deal of creativity and bravery.